Hello everyone, my name is Dellair Youssef and this is Revision Soziokultur podcast. So please tell me who you are and can you introduce yourself individually?
My name is Isabel Püker, and I am the general manager here at Gostner Hof Theater in Nürnberg.
My name is Christine Haas, and I am a dramaturg here at Gostner Hof Theater.
And we are two people from our three people leadership team.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about Gostner Hof Theater and what it is, how did it start, and who are the people working there?
Okay, Gostner Hof Theater was founded back in 1979, an old toy factory, and started as a socio-cultural theater here in this part of the town, which was a rough part of the city back in the 80s. And it was founded by teachers and pedagogues who wanted to do art. And with the years, it developed from people who just loved theater to professionals. And back in 2019, there was a change in the leadership, and the founders retired, and we're now the first generation of studied theater makers who are leading this theater.
And how many people are working in the theater at the moment?
So we've got about 13 people who work here all year round in fixed contracts, and then we hire actors, directors, stage set designers on guest contracts. And so we have a total of, I think, 40 to 50 people working here over the course of a year, but a lot of them have 1 or 2 month contracts for one specific production. We do 6 productions in a year and have lots of guests coming in for each of them.
So you already met some of my colleagues before, and they told me that you're really dynamic, open people, and you're able to get to the bottom of your of the issue you are facing, and you're but you are also optimistic with some solutions, and that made me think to ask you, why do you think that you give that good impact to the people that never been in the theater?
We're flattered.
Yes.
I think part of it is because we're in this with all our heart. It's really important to us. We try to have a good culture between our employees and the artists, and also the city. And we really love to be part of the city and create a space where people want to be.
Okay, as I told you, this diary thing is divided two parts, 6 parts. And first part I was talking about activism with projects, second one about music, third one about change. Now I'm talking about sustainability. And first thing when you hear the word sustainability is environment, and also the UN Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, and they talk about gender equality, zero hunger, good health, clean water, climate change, climate actions. And looking at your website, following your projects, make me think that you somehow follow these goals, even if you don't show it directly. For example, I saw this play, I do the same job bleeding, and this is talking about, I don't know, gender equality and stuff. So tell me a little bit about these issues. How do you think about about this topics you want to talk about, and what does sustainable means to you?
I think for us, the dimension of sustainability that we encountered in these past months or years since we took over was mostly the idea of how to make the theater sustainable in a way that it can exist without being dependent on specific people too much. So it's not as much like an environmental idea of sustainability, it's more an idea of sustainability to sustain itself and not be lost just because one person leaves. I feel like that's something that we've discussed a lot, and we try to build structures to sort of save the theater from certain changes that would be really bad if they were to affect the house in like an existential way. And I feel like that's a dimension of sustainability that, especially in the more of the free arts sector, is very, very important, because a lot of theaters, a lot of groups have been founded by people who put in a lot of their own effort and their like private energy and money. And we are just now trying to shift it into a way where this is also a workplace, and this is also a workplace that's fair and well paid. And I feel like that's a part of sustainability that sometimes gets lost in translation. And then when it comes to the more environmental sides of it, then I think we strive, we want to be sustainable. Like we are in agreement that this is a goal for us, and we're trying to figure out how we can do that to our abilities, because that's regularly heartbreaking to me. A lot of times the sustainable option is the more expensive option, and we don't have the money to go for the like full-on sustainable option. And so we kind of try to see where we can be as sustainable as we can be with the means that we have.
Yeah. And regarding the contents of our plays, it's we are a free theater, so we are not doing, okay, we have to have a play with this topic and one with this topic. It's more like, which people do we want to have here, because we think it's an energy that is good for this house, for this city. And then we are developing the topics with them. And with the example of I do the same job leading, we are thinking it's a very important topic. And we met the girls who created this piece as an online performance in the beginning. And we thought it would be really nice to have them here. And funnily, they are representing right in this moment downstairs. And I think we have kind of more freedom than the State Hill Theater or something like that. And it's, for me, it is important because I remember from being in city theaters and all that you often have directors and teams who are working with a topic they don't really want to do. It's just they have to do it to have a job. And as we try to pay fair, but as it is in the artistic sector, the wages are low. And so we want that the people get a repay in the contents, kind of that, so that they can do it while they are having fun and get paid.
I will go back to that fun part later, but I was just want to ask before, like, what does your work mean to your local community in the city of Nuremberg?
What Christina said earlier, this idea of we are not the big, massive state theater that is like this huge institution. We're a smaller space. Like, people can get very close to our performances. They can meet the artists over a beer at our bar after the show. I think we are. It's a lot more intimate coming to see a show or a concert or anything that we do in this space than over in the bigger venues. And I feel like that is something that our community appreciates, that they feel like a part of it, that it's not the divide in the artist and the audience, but it's more like, a focus on all of them being there together and being able to have a chat after the performance, as equals and not as like the star of the show and the person in the last row.
Yes, I think we are much more approachable, and you don't have to be afraid of us. Like in the state theater, I love the state theater, but it's much gold and everything, and we're here in the backyard in a small venue, and it's quite nice to be here. We have 9 rows in our theater, yes, and so it's like you're not just watching, you're part of it, and you really feel you're part of it. It does matter that you're here when you're in the audience.
That's really nice. But also, you're not only working with locals, no? You have like guests from all over Germany and sometimes international people. And do you face any challenges like with shifting from like local artists to, I don't know, artists from so-called outside?
Our rule is that we want to work with 50% local artists. So we have actors and directors and authors who are living around here, and we're working with them. And we're getting people from all over the world, yes, for our festival Lichtblicke, or as well this year we worked with a Polish director, for example. And I think this mix is very nice because you have synergies, and so it's good for the local people to get new impulses from the outside. And as far as I experience it, it's nice for the people from outside to get in here and to get to be a part of our community here in Nuremberg.
Okay, so that's kind of like leading me to talking about like theater and like you're talking about like, I don't know, bringing people from outside, talking about, I don't know, your like community and being part of the show and everything. And that makes me think about like theater and like how to change through theater. And is it like does always theater plays have to have a message, a political message or a social message, or I don't know? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't think that theater always has to have an explicit message, but I think that theater always has kind of a message because we're coming together in a place, and we're together. Also, if I'm also only in the audience, I'm working on the topic with the others. And also, if it's just a comedy with any question or big topic, I'm in the community. And I think that's the magic of theater for me. And I think it's also a thing that got a bit lost about during the pandemic. And but I see that people coming back and they are learning new what it means to be together in a space and discussing a topic. And I think theater is important for community building, for testing social connections in a way. And I love when I'm in a theater and I'm feeling connected to people. I don't need to talk to them, but they're sitting there with me. We are experiencing together something, and maybe we're just having a fun evening, but it might change how I view things afterwards.
Okay, I will go back to what you said, Christine, about having fun and checking your website also, and what you also before said about like working from your heart and like doing everything. It looks like you are really having fun. Like there's a lot of joy while working. So, are you really having fun, or you only have a good website? And how important for you to be happy and to have fun with what you do,
We're really having fun. It's, of course, there is stuff which is struggle as well, and stuff with nerven,
Annoying.
which is annoying, stuff which is annoying and everything. But in the main time, it's yes, fun. It's making me happy, and I think this is very important because if we are not convinced to do that, if we do not want to do that, why should anyone come to watch? If we are not convinced, how can we convince the people to come?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Okay, so when I got this job, it's like about socioculture, soziokultur, and I was like, okay, huh? What is socioculture, and then I decided to do like the whole project for this like whole year, to discover what is socioculture. And my idea was to look at it from like different angles and different perspectives. Of course, there's like a theoretical answer or definition, but there's like, I've been asking this question to everyone, and every person is like giving me like different answer. So I will ask you too, like, what is socioculture for you? How do you define that?
For me, I would say it's the overlap of culture, or it's the part of culture that focuses on the social aspects. So I would say we are a socio-cultural space because we have our community in mind whenever we produce. We it's like it's difficult to talk about a bit because in Germany we have this weird divide between E-Kultur and U-Kultur, like ernste Kultur, serious culture, and entertainment, and nobody wants to do entertainment. And I feel like it's a similar divide between socioculture and like l'art pour l'art, the art for the art, without having anything in mind except for expressing the expression of the artist. And I feel like we're like at a good in between point between producing for our audiences and producing for our communities and producing as an outlet for the artists that come here and that have a story or a message or anything that they want to put on our stage. And then what I always feel is very important when talking about socio-cultural aspects is that we try to also work with teenagers. We reach out to schools. We have specific programs for young audiences, which I think is really, really important because they are obviously the audiences of the future, but they're also right now part of society. And as a part of our society, they have a right to be a part of the cultural life of it. And I feel like when you're working for teenagers or when you're working with teenagers and with younger audiences, the whole aspect of working for a specific community becomes even more important in developing plays and projects and participation things for young people.
Okay. For me, it's like I think theater is per se a social art form because we need the audience. A painter can paint his pictures and nobody needs to see them ever, and he will have his fun. But a theater without audience doesn't work. And for me, the socio-cultural approach explicitly is to be approachable, to get to communicate over the theater evenings and to be in exchange with the audience, and also create spaces where they can be part of it. and not only being part of the audience in the evening, but they can also influence us in their way. We're a association, is that correct? And so we offer to be more part of us.
Okay, and do you include also like I don't know, newcomers, refugees, non-German people in your theater, in your project? Do you think about them the way you think about, I don't know, teenagers as a part of the society?
Yes, of course. In our programs for young people, there are always spaces where they can be part of that. We have a program, the Kulturrucksack, which is especially for young people who do not have much money, who maybe couldn't afford to go to the theater. And for our performances, we also always have a date where you can, when you do not have the money, where you can come without paying. It's very important for us that everybody can visit us and that there is not a high paywall.
And you get funded by Fonds Soziokultur for one of your projects. How does that change your plans, the fund you get from there, if it changed at all? How does that affect your work?
I think it created space because the project that we applied to Fonds Soziokultur with was part of our like leadership and sort of well, there's this big fancy word that I can't think of right now. Change management processes. So as Christina said earlier, we took over the theater in 2019 from the founding generation, and ever since then we've been sort of turning rocks and finding snakes and trying to figure out how we can restructure this house in like to make it work for future generations as well, because I feel like the first generation of people who worked here, for them it was always about survival and getting into the next year, into the next year, into the next year. And now I feel like we sort of have the job of making sure that we now develop a perspective for the next 5 years, or maybe the next 10 years, or maybe the next 20 years. And the funding through Fonds Soziokultur allowed us to make the room to have these discussions and to do workshops with people from outside who came in and who brought in impulses and ideas. And I feel like we also both really, really enjoyed our mentoring session with Zoe Seaton, which gave us a lot of input and perspectives. And I feel like that's just a really, really good thing, that we could take the time to look at the theater as somewhat of an institution and to sort of plot out where this should move into in the future, which is something that I don't think has happened in this house in the past 40 something years that it existed, because it was always just a matter of, we have to get through this year, we have to get through this year. And now we were able to sort of raise the view and sort of widen the horizon and say, well, yeah, but what are we going to do, what are we going to be doing in 5 years from now?
And I think it's also what we're doing is kind of a professionalization at some points, because there are things that were developed over the years, and it's just like we found a way how we could do it, but maybe it's not the best way, and maybe it's also not the 2022 way, but it's the 90s way or the 80s way. And that are things that we had the possibility to work on with this funding. So yes, to do workshops with our employees and show them new ways, and that they can feel safe doing things and get to know how to do things in a good and also sustainable way, and not just like, okay, we have a solution for this time, but next time I don't know what the solution will be.
Yeah, this all you said is bring us back to the sustainability topic, né? Like with all the vision and all the like steps that you took. And that's really interesting. I will ask you like my last question, and I want to ask you about your plans in the future. But I also want to know what you're doing right now. Plus, I want to know how you deal with the history, because you were talking about the history of the theater and people worked there before you, and but also the bigger history, like the topics that were like I don't know, in the past. So how you reflect that on your project now and in your like plans in the future.
Okay.
That's a big question.
And I think you have to ask between again,
Yeah.
because we're losing half of the questions.
Let me start here. The thing that I feel like we noticed being one of our biggest issues in our work is the issue of the urgent stuff gets in the way of the important stuff. So you only tend to the urgent stuff, and then the important stuff sort of falls off the table. And that's something that we try to tackle this year, to build structures to make room to actually work on the important stuff, and to build structures that help tackle the urgent stuff more efficiently, so that that takes up less time and less space, and that we find solutions that are sustainable, so that we don't have to solve the same problem every 6 weeks when we have another opening night and we are again surprised by, oh, this is something we need to do every 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's also about empowering, because when we're empowered, we can empower our employees, and then we can hopefully also empower the audience and so on. So I always think it's a chain reaction.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that we want to keep pushing in the future. And really, I feel like right now we're at a point where we have discovered most of the issues, probably still not all of them, but we now know which stones have snakes under them and which snakes are the most dangerous ones. And now we need to move forward and sort of find ways to deal with all of that. And it's a really weird situation, I feel like, to talk about the future in the arts sector, just because it seems so grim, and the all of the perspectives everywhere, you just read that there's no money, everything is getting more expensive, we need to raise our wages, but we don't know how to do it. So it's not the best moment to sort of look ahead, and the future does look kind of depressing, but I feel like it's the one of the main jobs of the culture and the arts sector to bring light into the grimness, and I feel like we are going to find a way, we are going to persevere. It's just we need to be inventive and creative about it and come up with new solutions.
I'm also very optimistic and hopeful, because I think there is an urgency to the arts. I think that arts and culture make lives better. And a little anecdote. I was in Poland this summer, because we were there with one of our plays. And I visited different cities before joining our actors. And we were in Lublin at the end. And Lublin is a city with is doing much culture. And they wanted to be capital city of culture, and they didn't get it, but they did it anyways. And you feel it there, that when I compare it to the rest of Poland, that the people are much more open and friendly. And I think culture changes lives. I'm really convinced that it's like that. And I think it's more important to see that. And I know that economy and everything like that is also important, but why do economy if everybody is just sad and doesn't want to be around anymore?
We call that capitalism, you know.
Yes, I know, but
Everybody is sad. So yeah, that's true. That's like a nice answer for my question. And I promise that was my last question, but I obviously have another one. I want to know how you plan your like projects. How like somebody comes like with an idea to you and you approve, or you plan, I want to do that in like, I don't know, next year I want to do this, or like focus on this topic. How do you do it?
in the planning of season, our third direction members also very important, Laurent Gröflin. Laurent and I, we are the artistic decision makers, and we are talking very much and what are topics we think are important, who are people we want to have around. There are also people coming to us and saying, I have this idea, and we are looking how does it work out with the other stuff we want to do. And so we're trying to create space for the projects and people we think that are interesting, which are interesting now and here. And it might be a complete other situation next year, but this year we're thinking these people should be here.
That's really nice. Thank you very much. That was like really nice, beautiful, inspiring, and I really, really like your work and your project actually. It's really beautiful. This podcast is supported by Fonds Soziokultur. The music is composed by Benjamin Berry. See you in the next episode.